And we're back here in WrestleRant. I'm Graham Giuseppe Matthews, and of course, for the entire months of December and January, we're breaking down every installment in Royal Rumble history, with the exception of those that I reviewed last year. And today, we're talking about the 1995 installment of the pay-per-view, as seen on the WWE Network. Kicking off the show for the Intercontinental Championship, Razor Ramon defending the gold against Jeff Jarrett. Pretty good match. These guys had a pretty long feud from late 94 to the first few months of 1995, so they worked very well together. They always had really good matches. Jeff Jarrett, a glorified mid-card guy, I understand that. Doesn't have a lot of fans out there. I don't really consider myself a Jeff Jarrett fan, but where he was on the card with the gimmick that he had, he was entertaining. I'll give him that much. Him and Razor Ramon had a pretty good match here. In the end, it was Jarrett winning via countout, and then after Razor Ramon got injured or something, and then Jarrett got on the mic, said, "What are you, a coward champion? You can't defend while you're injured. Put it on the line." Kind of goading Razor, putting the championship back on the line. And I know it kind of makes the baby faces look stupid, but at the same time making them look, brave and strong and whatever. So it's, best of both worlds, I guess, to an extent. I mean, I hate to call him like an idiot, Razor Ramon, for goading him back into the match. But on the flip side, though, it did make Jarrett look smart. And in the end, he would win the championship. So Jeff Jarrett, the new Intercontinental Champion, as a result of the mind games that he played with Razor Ramon. So it was good psychology there, good ending, put the championship on Jarrett. Put Razor Ramon in chase mode and kicked off the show to a pretty positive note, I thought. I thought it was a good match, good angle to close the match, and a new champion crown that kind of reinvigorated the feud for the next few months between these two. So after that, a singles match between The Undertaker and IRS. Pretty boring match. We got a lot of interference from DiBiase's boys, and DiBiase, for the better part of 94 and 95, was having his entire corporation essentially get buried by The Undertaker, literally and figuratively. From Bam Bam Bigelow to IRS, to it just goes on and on and on and on. And IRS was no exception. He would lose here to The Undertaker. Pretty just an odd, ungodly, boring match between these two guys. And the interference didn't help. It was so obvious. Undertaker won every single match that he had against DiBiase's $1 million corporation. He always won. He never lost, to my memory. He beat Undertaker. He beat Yokozuna. He beat IRS. He beat King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania. He beat Bam Bam Bigelow. He beat every single one of the fucking guys. So what kind of threat are they? You know what I mean? It was almost like John Cena booking. They just kept on coming up with new opponents to defeat Undertaker and really no plans for anyone else. For the most part. I know they did have some long-term plans in place, but and the respect that they would just keep on feeding people to Taker, just feeding him people. And his gimmick allowed for that, but it did nothing for his opponents. Like, none of the people that he faced in the 90s have really, what's the word I'm looking for? Have really panned out well. Their careers, that is. Giant Gonzalez, all these other guys were glorified losers. So a pretty boring match that I didn't really enjoy whatsoever. But after that, a match I did enjoy for the WWF Championship. I thought it was no disqualification. That was a couple years earlier. But it was Diesel versus Bret Hart for the WWF Championship. And Bret Hart had lost the championship, and I'll kind of recap briefly here. But Survivor Series 94, it was Bret Hart and Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund won the belt after Bret Hart, quote-unquote, gave up after, the Hart family threw in the towel for Bret Hart, after Owen Hart convinced them it was the right thing to do. 2 days later, or maybe 3 days later, I don't remember exactly, somewhere around that range, Kevin Nash, a.k.a. Diesel, would beat Bob Backlund for that championship at an MSG house show, reign as champion up until this match and for the next year. And Bret Hart wanted his rematch on this show. So a lot of back history here, but it made sense. And if you know the back history, it'll only add to your enjoyment of this match, because there's a lot of interference down the stretch, but I thought it was good in that it set the stage. It's not like they would have this match go to a draw and that'd be it. They would go back to this match, and I'm thinking the no DQ match that I'm thinking of was from Survivor Series that same year, which I thought was great. Bret Hart won the championship back, and it was a great moment. So that's what I'm thinking of, and I don't know if that was the long-term plan, but they would plant the seeds for that with all the interference from Shawn Michaels, who would face Diesel at WrestleMania, from Owen Hart, who was already feuding with Bret Hart, and Bob Backlund, who was already kind of in a pseudo-feud with Bret Hart, and they would finish up their feud at WrestleMania in the I Quit match. But before that, though, even before all the interference, I thought it was a very entertaining match. These guys worked very well together, very similar to their Survivor Series match. I probably enjoyed that match a little bit more, maybe just because of the no disqualification stipulation. But in and of itself, this match was still very, very good. A logical finish, not one of those non-shitty finishes where I didn't really care for it. I thought it kind of hindered the match. No, I thought the draw was fine with the story they were telling. Set up many different feuds between Michaels and Diesel. Continued the feud between Owen and Bret, and continued the feud between Backlund and Bret Hart going into WrestleMania. After that, for the WWF Tag Team Championships, Bob Holly and the 1-2-3 Kid beating Bam Bam Bigelow and Tatanka for the championships. A fun little match because Bob Holly and the 1-2-3 Kid, as the 1-2-3 Kid's name suggests, was mostly an underdog. So it made for a very fun match, and him and Bob Holly were a team thrown together at the last minute, but they had some very fun chemistry. Tatanka and Bam Bam Bigelow worked well together. And again, and it didn't really help that Tatanka and Bigelow were, again, glorified losers as part of the $1 Million Corporation. I think 1-2-3 Kid would join them soon after as well, because I remember him turning heel and joining with DiBiase before he left the promotion a couple months later. But still, it was a fun little match, ending with Bob Holly and the 1-2-3 Kid picking up the win. So a fun match, a fun finish, and kind of a good way of tying us right into the Royal Rumble main event. So, as I mentioned, the 30-man Royal Rumble match for the WWF Championship, with a winner, with the winner getting a title shot in the main event of WrestleMania 11. Not the greatest Rumble in recent memory in all the years that I've watched up to this point. Michaels had a decent showing, but he was not really in there. When he was in there for the 40 minutes this match lasted, I think it might have been the quickest Rumble of all time, with the exception of the 20-man one from 1988. Maybe even that one was longer. I have to check. But they mentioned that during the course of this match, there's just way too much going on. You know, McMahon mentions on commentary that the people coming in are quicker than ever before because it's every 60 seconds, I think, instead of a minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever it is now. It's a lot quicker than it usually is or was or is now, whatever. So a lot of people were just coming on in, and it was just a horrendous reminder watching this Rumble how many bad gimmicks they had back in 1995 from Druk the Dumpster Drozy and all these other stupid-ass gimmicks. And this was basically the gimmick battle royal that we saw at WrestleMania 17, just it was taken seriously in a Royal Rumble match. A lot of these guys were glorified losers, like I mentioned. Lex Luger had a pretty good showing here. He had a nice story going for himself after losing the title matches at WrestleMania and throughout the rest of 1994. This was his redemption story, but he would come up short. Crush was the the second to last man taken out, and then it was British Bulldog and Shawn Michaels. I thought British Bulldog had a better showing than Michaels, and he was in there for the same amount of time. But the finish went down, and this would kind of kick off the both feet have to be on the floor rule to get eliminated. So Bulldog tosses Michaels over the top rope, it's believed, and you don't get a great camera angle when Michaels gets quote-unquote eliminated, but he's seen draping over the top rope. It looks like he's touching the floor. Fans are kind of confused. Bulldog celebrates. His music hits. Michaels apparently, he jumps back over the top rope. The referee sees that only 1 foot touched the ground, pushes Bulldog over the top rope, and wins the Rumble for the first time ever from the number 1 spot. Ric Flair won it from the number 3 spot, not number 1 in 1992. So, they kind of, like I said, they kind of kicked off the rule, and it was a screwy finish, but it made sense with what they were trying to establish, that both feet have to be on the ground, and they've kind of carried that tradition throughout the last 20 years, with Kofi Kingston having both hands, doing a handstand, and, landing on top of the commentator's desk and whatever else. All these different tricks and whatnot, because they established the rule on this show. I'm pretty sure it's always been, in play, that rule that both feet have to touch the ground, but they wanted to kind of test those waters with this match. And Michaels looked like a heel in winning this match and facing Diesel at WrestleMania. I think that was the intent, because I'm pretty sure Michaels was still a heel by this point, and Diesel was supposed to be a babyface at WrestleMania. I don't remember exactly. That WrestleMania just was not good. So I can't say I hated the finish. It was clever. It was unique. It had never been done before. It gave Michaels a big win going in from number 1. Not as impressive as Ric Flair. He started from number 1. Flair started from number 3. Not a huge difference. I just thought the 92 Rumble was a lot better than this one. This one, again, like I said with the 94 Rumble, was very paint by numbers. A lot of awful gimmicks. This was when WWE was at its worst product-wise and business-wise. So a big win for Michaels, but I thought the 96 win was a lot better anyway when he won back-to-back years, and it would set up his Cinderella story at WrestleMania that same year. And I thought that WrestleMania was a lot better. I thought that Rumble was a lot better, so hold out for WrestleMania, or rather Royal Rumble 1996. I already viewed it here on the channel last year. If you want to check it out, so my next video will cover Royal Rumble 97. But going back to this show, Royal Rumble 1995, on the whole, not a great show. I thought it was better on the whole than 94. I don't know if I would call it a must-see. The only one match I would suggest that you go out of your way to watch would be the WWF title match. Just prepare yourself for a shitty finish. But even then, again, it makes storyline sense because it furthers a lot of feuds, plants the seeds for a lot of feuds between Michaels and Diesel. Owen Hart and Bret Hart and Bob Backlund, setting up a lot of matches for WrestleMania. I also forgot to mention, too, after the tag team title match, Bam Bam Bigelow attacked Lawrence Taylor at ringside. The whole football team was there. He pushed down Lawrence Taylor, and that would set up their WrestleMania match. So a lot of matches on this show are they kind of set the stage for WrestleMania 11, arguably one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. But as far as this show goes, not terrible, yet an entertaining opener. Taker and IRS was a shit show. Skip that match. Diesel and Bret Hart had a great match, I thought. The tag team title match was fun. The Rumble wasn't bad, just kind of unspectacular, although the finish was clever. So, between yes, watch it or don't watch it, I'd probably say do watch it. Again, not the greatest Rumble I've seen up to this point, or just in the event's history over the last 25, 30 years. But it does have its moments with the opener and the tag team title match and the end of the Rumble I thought were all special. Everything else, and also the WWE title match. So the good outweighs the bad here. Decent show. I give it a mild thumbs up. Check it out in the WWE Network at your leisure. But until my Rumble review of the 1997 Rumble, like I said, the 96 one's already up here on the channel, from last January if you want to check it out. But in the meantime, in between time, you guys can catch me on the Twitter at WrestleRant. Follow me there. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.jason.matthews. Give the page an old thumbs up. And last but not least, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Have a great one, guys, and I'll catch you folks down the road.